was to chair the subcommittee hearing.
He left. Didn't he turn it over to somebody else?
Turned it over to Senator Burns.
Senator Burns? Okay. I just wanted to let you say that.
Thank you.
I knew who it was, but I wanted to let you say it. Talking about Senator Burns, and he's not here, so I can tell this story, but he was, he had signed up to speak at the North Coast, which is the Cleveland organization of fastener distributors and manufacturers in Cleveland. He'd signed up, but about 3 days before, he called and said because of pressure of business in Washington, he couldn't make it. So he said he was going to videotape a message to the North Coast Fasteners people. So, and so happens that Jay Hebert, our Vice President of Sales, was to be there to represent the manufacturers on the same program. Jay had been out of town. He gets a call from the secretary from the North Coast that morning, Thursday morning, and said that, told her what happened. She said, I have a copy of the video. I'll drop it off so you can look at it so you can tie in your remarks. So she brings it over to Lake Erie. Jay plays it on the video and looks at it, and he leaves immediately for the meeting, for the dinner meeting. So he's there, and after dinner, the secretary introduces Jay Hebert and apologized for Senator Burns couldn't be there, and she said, Jay, maybe you'd like to play the video first. And Jay said, what video? And she said, well, I brought it over to Lake Erie and gave it to you. And he said, well, you said it was a copy. I left it at Lake Erie. So poor Jay, and Senator Burns never got on that night, but Jay had watched it, and he had enough information that he was able to tell him. But don't tell the senator. I know that I can trust you.
To the end.
Right, to the end. This is a little bit of a talk that I gave, just a couple comments to the IFI, and this is probably 3 or 4 years ago before this. Now is the time. The time is now. The Fastener Law has been passed for some time now. There has been much discussion, and there couldn't be a better time in a short history to prepare your company and your people for the implementation of the law. How many times have we said that, huh? Through 8 two-day meetings in Washington, and we've had a couple more since, generating untold number of faxes, phone calls, negotiations, written reports, white papers, 16 people have sat in a Fastener committee trying to do what is right for the industry. If you totaled the time Steve Schoenholtz, Bill Hayes, and I spent on the project, enough energy has been spent to run a mid-sized distributor. 2,500 pages of testimony and 300 letters have been read and analyzed. We are a $6 billion industry, and 1% of the industry was supposed to be covered by the law, which amounts to about 60 million. It now stands at 1.5 billion, or 25%, which will be affected by the law. David Edgerly, is David here? Oh, okay, I'll change this then. David Edgerly, the designated federal officer, has been working. What a great person he is. Has been working. Has been working from the executive branch of our government, along with Mike Rubin. What a guy he is. The chief counsel for NIST. These are two bright people who have been trying to make sense out of a poorly written law with lots of loopholes. Possibly early on, there was a feeling that it was the manufacturers versus the distributors, and the distributors and the manufacturers against the poor importers, and the technical people trying to look at things from a different point of view than the manufacturers. What a mess. This soon straightened out once we accepted the fact that everybody had their own viewpoints. As a manufacturer, you go in thinking that, hey, you own the world. As a distributor, you say, hey, the world owes us a living. And the importer says, hey, don't forget us. We've got a right to be here, too. That went off real big with the IFI meeting. They like my appraisal. Okay, now this is when the law was still called H.R. 300. Maybe some of you know this guy here. Does he work for you, Porteous? He does. And he says, importers and distributors will have to tighten up ordering and receiving procedures to ensure that all affected product will have lot control numbers and that manufacturers have available certifications produced by an accredited lab on file. They also will face the obstacle of developing or modifying their current systems, provide lot traceability on sales to their OEMs and resale customers. Have you done all of that? He shook his head, yes. And you've done a lot more, too, right? Okay, the next two guys are a couple characters. This was an article in Today's Distributor in 1991. A couple good-looking guys. The guy in the top here grew a mustache for this. Steve, I never noticed that you had a mustache. After 2 years of debate and amendments, H.R. 3000 is passed. What was the original number? Do you remember?
777.
777. You were close, but no cigar.
56 and 338 was before that.
Well, you're older than I am. I don't remember that. After 2 years of debate and amendments, H.R. 3000 has been passed with final language, I'm stuck there, with final language that still needs some redefining and fine-tuning. The overall concept of the bill is to ensure compliance with quality standards for critical use fasteners. That's enough of you, Steve. Let's get down and see what Wasmer says. Over there in the second column there, I predict distributors will drastically reduce their supplier base and gravitate to the tried and true manufacturers like Lake Erie Screw that they can count on, like Lake Erie Screw, both in today and in the future. We will see a lot of investing in labs and lab equipment, so both distributors and manufacturers might do their own certification work. Now, we were all very serious, but kind of naive in those days, but a lot of it's come true, and I think the world's a lot better for all the work that we've put into it. Get rid of those. Over the years, we've put a lot of programs on, and this is one in 1993 in Chicago. And Wally and Julie are here this morning to see how you people operate, and I just wanted them to see that, did they show up this morning? Wally? Oh. Pull that one off. They'll never know what I was going to say about them. Well, here's the same old BS. David, how long have you been using that same picture? You're a hell of a lot older now than when that was taken. But anyways, who's that guy Max up there? He's president of the IFI now. But there we go. Mel Seitz from Service Supply, George Wasmer, Steve Schoenholtz, Jack Sullivan, Bill Hayes, and David Edgerly will combine to set the stage for current happenings regarding 101-592. More importantly, we'll learn firsthand how this law may affect your company and perhaps how you could structure yourself now to meet the needs. One distributor states that because of his inventory, costs could exceed $500,000 or more. Be there to determine how this will affect you. I don't know who that distributor was. Does anybody know who it was? I think it was from this part of the country, wasn't he? I gave my first talk in Florida years ago, and Joel Roseman, who I'm sure you all know, and another speaker there was Eric Cohen. Boy, was I scared. I'd heard about Eric all my life, and you know, he just gets up there, no notes, and I'm up there like I am today with notes. Everything's written down. Eric gets up there right out of the hip pocket. He'd been an importer, and he'd been around for years, and he was smart. And in those days, he was kind of the enemy, you know, and I was representing the manufacturers, as always. I went to address a group, and I noticed there was an American flag in the back of the room. And I asked for minutes that I could set up my props, and I went and got the American flag, and I brought it over there and put it behind me, and I said, I feel like a motherhood and apple pie talk this morning. Well, that, of course, got everybody's attention. But I didn't know what Eric was going to do. But when he came up, he said he wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole. He just wasn't going to go after me on that one. But Eric got even. We were in Bermuda, and Mary Lou and I spent the afternoon shopping, and we bought a few Pringle cashmeres there in St. George, and we come walking out of the store, and who's sitting there on the bench but Eric Cohen? And he was waiting for me. And he says, George, he says, I hope those were domestic sweaters you bought.